So the history of the International Integrated Reporting Council, we really started thanks to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, who in his Accounting for Sustainability Forum challenged accountants and challenged chief financial officers of companies on their valuation, that it wasn't reflecting the changes that are existing in the wider world, but then which do impact upon companies themselves. And so this whole concept of integrated reporting was developed, set up in 2010, a 70-strong global council of very senior people in business and investment and in the regulatory world, including the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, the world's financial market regulators, IOSCO, the world's biggest private sector investor, BlackRock, big companies like Unilever, HSBC. And together, they have forged this idea of integrated reporting to try to ensure that the integrated principles are built in to the reporting system in the world. So this is not a new or a different type of reporting that companies have to do. It's reporting that international investors want and will become the global and is becoming the global norm in terms of access to international capital markets.
Middle East Investor Relations Association started in 2008, and we're delighted to announce we're coming up to our 10th anniversary this year. A decade of tremendous developments in the region. The work that we've done with the corporates across the Middle East and North Africa, working closely also with the capital markets authorities, the regulators, to try and generate a wider understanding of the needs of the broader investor community in terms of communicating and articulating very clearly and concisely in a consistent manner the story of each and every company that is now participating in the stock markets. The tools that we've tried to bring to the markets here include investor relations, but of course that is a part of corporate governance and shouldn't really be seen as separate to it. A number of other technical tools have come in the last few years, many respects brought in by the regulatory authorities themselves. So they're beginning to adopt XBRL, very important for the accuracy of information and consistency of that accuracy. So yes, just as investor relations was initially an alien concept to some in certain respects, I think we comfortably say that it's been much better understood in the last few years. There's an accelerated appreciation for the value that this adds to the companies, whether they are listed already or whether they're considering listing, whether they're family offices or smaller successful businesses that are poising to IPO. All of these functionalities help them in communicating and ensuring that they garner the valuation that their companies merit. We're delighted to endorse this effort as the next step, the new generation's view on the way in which a company interacts with its social stakeholder network as well as its investor stakeholder network.
So what is this integrated reporting? It's quite simply understanding that there are different resources and relationships that a company has that are vital to its success. Always we've talked about financial capital and manufactured capital. These are the mainstay of financial accountancy and reporting. But the IRC says there are 6 capitals, that there are people too, human capital. There are communities and society that have an impact upon the company, social capital. There's ideas and knowledge, intellectual capital, and there's the whole environment, natural capital. What the integrated report does is it enables the company to look at both the risks and the opportunities that exist from each of those 6 capitals, to work out for itself what is really material to it as a company, and then to put it in its business strategy and to describe it within its business model. And this is the recipe for long-term value creation for the company and for its investors. It's a short, concise report that achieves all of that, And there's not one single company in the world that we know that has started integrated reporting that has stopped it. When you start the journey, the companies really like it, and I hope many more will start here in the months and years ahead. It's really exciting to see how far this is growing across the world. And this isn't just about numbers. If you look in India, where I've come directly to Dubai from, earlier this year the financial regulator there, SEBI, asked the top 500 listed companies to adopt integrated reporting. Across Asia, in Singapore, the stock exchange in Singapore has adopted integrated reporting. In Japan, it's been part of the whole modernisation of the Japanese economy that's been driven over the last 10 years. There are already 300 integrated reporting companies. It's the leading practice in their economy. In Great Britain, the UK strategic report is said by the financial regulator there, the FRC, to be consistent with integrated reporting and has mapped how the two relate to each other. And across the whole of the rest of Europe, it's been part of the non-financial reporting initiative that I myself was associated with in the past, so that 6,000 companies across the 28 European countries are integrating non-financial with financial reporting starting this very year. And in terms of the United States, many developments there, but one in particular of which I'm proud is working with the big Silicon Valley tech companies who are not simply coming closer to integrated reporting themselves, but are, in this era of digitalisation, developing the technology for the next generation of reporting to be technology for integrated reporting. Already integrated reporting is growing exponentially across the world. So 3 years ago, 160 companies. Today, 3 years later, 1,600, 10 times the number, being practiced in 62 different countries, all of the G20 countries, all of the BRICS countries.
So I think this is very important, and in fact speaks to the principles that we work towards as well, which is that there's nothing prescribed here. What we're trying to bring is a series of tools and capabilities to the corporates, to the markets in general, that will empower them in their communication and conversations with the investor community at large and stakeholders in general, and at the same time bringing a certain amount of rigor. I think the ability to bring to an emerging and/or frontier market environment like this, that is working so quickly to improve its standards, to reach the international benchmark, and those tools allow them to present themselves with consistency and in a way that is qualified as acceptable to the widest range of investors possible, I think is very powerful.
And one of the things that I want to emphasise is that this isn't something being imposed from outside on this region, but that the companies and other interests within the Middle East have been part of forging this and developing it. We had a seminar on integrated reporting in Kuwait now nearly 5 years ago. We've been part of working with the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group. Aramex is one of the biggest companies in the region that has led the way in terms of integrated reporting and been part of our business network activities. And indeed in this visit I'm meeting the stock exchange, the financial regulator, ESCA. We're very proud to be working alongside MIRA and thank them for their support. So putting all of that together, I want companies and the authorities in the Middle East to be aware of these global developments. And I do know that the companies that have already forged integrated reporting within the Arab world believe they're ahead of the curve, and I'm sure others will want to join them. Partly because I want companies here in this region to know about this global trend, that it is the future, that it's about being ahead of the curve by adopting integrated reporting. But partly because as the global chief executive of IIRC, I want to make sure that we have the most excellent partnership and relationship with the businesses, with the authorities here in this region, so I can go to the outer world and to give them the best story about the development of integrated reporting here, and to make sure that some of the misconceptions that exist in the wider world about the region and its businesses are better answered, and integrated reporting is helping provide those answers. The sorts of messages that I'm hearing from our partners in the region, not just during this visit, is that access to foreign direct investment is crucial today, but even more crucial in the future, with the sort of economic diversification that is now part of the strategy here in the Emirates, for example, but also to meet the needs of the next generation in a region which has such large numbers of young people, and to meet their expectations for the future. And understanding that this is the benchmark for international investors, it is the key to unlock international investment now, and will be the norm to be able to do so in the future, is an important reason why companies across the Gulf and the Middle East should not be late adopters of integrated reporting. But I would equally say in my discussions with local partners is that that commitment to long-termism, not short-termism, is something that is already deeply rooted in the culture here. In fact, something that the Arab world can teach the West. And that concept of social responsibility is one that is very much part of the business commitment within the region. And the great thing about integrated reporting is that it's not telling companies what to do. It is a tool to help companies achieve the things that they want for themselves. And I find this as much here across the Middle East as I do anywhere and everywhere in the world.
So at Smart Media, we've been producing integrated reports now for quite some time. And we've, I think, done about 60 reports. And now what we are finding is that we are getting a lot of inquiries from the Middle East, particularly the GCC, where companies who earlier operated in a sort of insular environment, now when they want to reach out to global capital markets, they realize that they need a much better annual report. And we have found that whenever we have this conversation of integrated reporting, the companies really light up to that, because they also want to demonstrate the total value of their companies, and also to be able to command a better price to book value. And now we see still the adoption of integrated reporting is still in its very early stages, but I can see this really taking off in the next few years.
We see integrated reporting as the next step. This is a very important part of the broader reporting cycle that speaks to the impact of the companies and the listed entities, and even the pre-listed entities if they start adopting this practice in the marketplace in general, both at an economic but also an environmental and at a social level. We've been talking about ESG for a number of years, and in fact, if you look at the social tradition in the Middle East, there is a requirement, there's an expectation that at leadership level, regardless of whether that's in government or in the private sector, there's a regular and open forum of communication between those authorities and the people at large. We see this as very important, and as you've mentioned, it's the quality of that tool and the way in which it is deployed that will make the difference.
I think the tradition that there is within this region for social responsibility by business is really important, and we respect and honour that. And I've been part of that in my past. It's about how you run the business, and it's the impact of the business through its day-to-day work that it has on society and it has on the wider environment. And then the whole concept of integrated reporting, as you say, takes that one step further and says not simply is there an impact on the wider environment and the world, but the wider environment and the world have an impact back on the company. And integrated reporting is a tool to understand that impact and then to build that in to value creation for the company itself and for its investors.
I would say the biggest benefit of adopting integrated reporting is for an organization to be able to demonstrate the impact it is having on all stakeholders. If there's a conflict between the organization and any one stakeholder, it's only a matter of time. The organization will not survive. So investors want to know this. Investors want to know from a long-term perspective, is this organization delivering value to all stakeholders? So I think this is one of the important things of integrated reporting. And the other thing is, unlike sustainability, so sustainability is also about how organization delivers value to its different stakeholders, but integrated reporting goes one step further. Integrated reporting takes up the position that if an organization delivers value to the different stakeholders, the stakeholders in turn become forms of capital for driving that organization's future earnings. So I think this is very interesting, and if an organization can really demonstrate this story of value creation, they will not only have long-term investors with them, they will have all other stakeholders believing in them and being with them through the good times and the bad. So right now companies are being judged from quarter to quarter. Most times, we refer to hot money. Investors just invest in a company and then take the money out, or invest in region, take that money out. But if they understand the long-term prospects, you will have long-term funds. This is a question we always get asked. Now we have done about more than 60 integrated reports for, I think, some 25 companies in 9 different countries. And I'm yet to meet a company who thought that they were actually ready for an integrated report. They often ask, do you think we will lend ourselves to an integrated report? Do you think we have the information to pull it off? And our answer has consistently been, if you really look at it, the information is generally looming large. It's a question of having to identify it and having to map it. And we have found that it's always better to make a start, and the faster you make the start, the better it is. It's a journey, and what IIRC says is it's a framework. It's a principles based framework, and it's not prescriptive. So it's really for the companies to understand it and adopt it in a manner that brings out the specific story of those companies. So if you really look at it that way, integrated thinking is really there in the companies. It may be tacit, but by getting this discipline through the integrated report, I think it also enriches the integrated thinking in an organization. This is what we have seen, and my advice to any company, any day, is just do it.
So to your point, Vijith, that many companies are daunted by the prospects of having to adopt yet another standard, yet another norm. In many respects, I would encourage them to have greater faith in the fact that they're already doing some of this. As part of the social tradition in this region, there is an openness and there is an approach towards certainly social integration of participation at markets level. And we're talking these days of greater financial literacy for the next generation, which is key. And it's not just within this region, it's around the world. As digitization takes hold, as everybody has access to more information on their handheld and more readily available comparators, it's key that companies are then enabled with the tools that put them on the front line in terms of openness and clarity. And we've talked about social perspective as well. There are a number of very large investment funds around the world that are now looking critically at the companies that they've invested in. And there are instances, recent instances that we can speak of. Norges is one of the world's largest, if not the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, and very recently issued some very clear directives with respect to which companies they would be willing to continue investing in. And if those companies did not show that they had taken effective consideration of the broader social and economic impacts, that they would withdraw their investment. So we're speaking to a wave of change, and the tools that we're bringing with this, I think, are absolutely timely now. So many thanks to Richard and the International Integrated Reporting Council for taking the time to come and see us here in the Middle East and to connect with us at MIRA.
We are very happy to collaborate with IIRC and with MIRA in mainstreaming integrated reporting in the Middle East. So as the first step, we are working with a handful of companies who have that burning desire to take their annual reports to that top international level.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone who's taken part watching this broadcast, but the message from me is you probably already practice integrated thinking. You may not have come across the concept of integrated reporting or the framework before, but what's important now is that you don't just carry on the thinking, but that you act upon it. And I hope many of the companies watching, like the ones you've referred to, Vijith, will start the journey to adopt integrated reporting. Many of the resources to enable you to do so are freely available on the IIRC website, including a 3-page document, How to Start Integrated Reporting, to a good examples database where you can study different reports from around the world in your sector, like for like, and see how they've done it. You can go to training for integrated reporting. I want some of the businesses here in this region to join the IIRC's own international integrated reporting business network and to join their global peers in advancing the cause of integrated reporting. And you may well, you don't have to use external advice, but you may well use external advice, consultancies like Smart Media, the accountancy companies and others who are able to offer this. For myself, we're a not-for-profit, no profit making takes place through the idea of integrated reporting. And my message, not just from the global level in terms of IIRC, but from the local companies and actors who are pursuing this within this region, is don't wait, start. I've been deeply impressed by the interest in integrated reporting that I've seen and heard here within the region already, the commitment there is to its further adoption and development. And I hope for everyone watching this broadcast, you've not simply been able to learn more about how integrated reporting is being adopted across the world, but that you will now choose to act upon it in your company and your organisation to begin this journey to adopt integrated reporting.